Really would like my old life back where I could walk the streets like a normal person.
They're saying that I took a gun, put it up, and killed another human being.
No, I'm not the one that shot him. I wouldn't hurt.
Then who did, Dee Dee? Tell us.
Greed, one of the 7 deadly sins, has the power to drive people to do the unthinkable. It can even lead them to break the sacred commandment of thou shalt not kill in the pursuit of wealth. And today's Rags to Riches tale delves into the senseless and brutal nature of greed, revealing its true cost. What if a stroke of luck in life has dire consequences? What if good karma turns sour as people's hearts harden towards the lucky? In today's bite-sized true crime recap, join us as we explore one such story of luck gone bad and greed that leads to murder. From one day a pauper, to the next a prince, to the next dead. Tune in as we explore the truth to the age-old adage, friends forget those whom fortune forsakes, a truly Shakespearean reflection of human immortality when there is money involved. On November 15, 2006, Abraham Shakespeare experienced a dramatic upheaval in his life, one most of us would love to experience. Like so many other millions of Americans, he had lived paycheck to paycheck, the 43-year-old surviving by doing odd jobs at a barbershop in Lakeland, Florida. Imagine then the look on his employer's shocked face when one day Abraham, who cleaned his shop, pulled up one day in a brand new black BMW after weeks of not coming in for work. He had, quite literally, hit the lottery, a $30 million Texas Lotto win. They say that sudden fortune can change people for the worse, but by all accounts, Abraham was a generous soul. He had struggled for most of his life, and so he didn't hesitate to loan money to those around him who needed it.
Did it out of goodness of his heart. A whole lot of them took advantage of it, but you know what? He gave it to them.
Choosing the $16.9 million upfront payment instead of yearly payments so he could help his family and friends improve their lifestyles. For the first time in his life, Abraham had money, and he bought himself a property worth $1.1 million, as well as houses for his cousins and many cars. His generosity knew no bounds, with him even helping his previous employer pay off $87,000 worth of loans. This case is all the more sad considering Abraham's kindness, as even though he gave away money with little hesitation to those who needed it, some people harbored ill intentions toward him. His mother and close family noticed how people would surround him, hoping to get loans, handouts, and favors. Abraham was a simple man and couldn't read or write, which unfortunately made it far easier for the selfish people who surrounded him because of his wealth to defraud him. As well, Abraham also understandably struggled with managing such a huge amount of money. He didn't know anything about investing, so when Dee Dee Moore walked into his life, he trusted her experience and skills. She ran a successful business near Lakeside and partnered up with Abraham to manage his treasure. It didn't surprise anybody that Dee Dee quickly enriched herself with Abraham's money, withdrawing $1 million and buying a Hummer, a Chevrolet Corvette, and a truck. She even had the audacity to award herself a vacation using Abraham's money. Abraham was aware that people's newfound interest in him was not long-lasting, nor based in good intentions. He told his brother, "I'd have been better off broke," and his cousin Cedric Edom would later say he was their cash cow. Tired and frustrated at being used for his money and harassed by the publicity that came with winning the lottery, Abraham Shakespeare retreated from the public eye and settled into a quiet life. Unfortunately, he was correct about how he would have been better off being broke. Perhaps his life wouldn't have been taken so quickly. It was because Abraham was keeping a low profile that alarm bells did not go off immediately when he disappeared. In early November 2009, Abraham's family began to really worry as they hadn't seen him since April. By November 9th, the frantic family, following several failed attempts at locating him, filed a missing persons report. Abraham had told his family that he was frustrated with the hounding money grabbers all around him all the time and was thinking of leaving his life behind and settling in a house on a Caribbean beach, so they wondered if he had actually managed to do so. The investigation to find Abraham had one prime suspect from the get-go, Dee Dee Moore. Her lavish lifestyle and suspicious financial records, which revealed her ownership of several of Abraham's assets, was strange considering how Abraham hadn't been seen for months. An anonymous tip submitted to the police led them to her boyfriend's backyard. On investigation, the decomposing body of Abraham Shakespeare, aged just 43, was discovered under a 5-foot grave with a concrete slab covering the top. Moore was taken into custody. However, her behavior was erratic and manipulative. Detectives grew so frustrated with her denying all involvement, even when financial records showed foul play, that they shouted at her. When questioned about her involvement in the death, Moore said that she had helped the frustrated Abraham move out of town and that he'd ended up in hospital in Puerto Rico. She then blamed his death on drug dealers, loan sharks, a lawyer, and even her own 14-year-old son. A perpetrator profile indicated that she was cunning, a pathological liar, and manipulative. Eventually, in her final statement, Moore shared that she had killed him in self-defense. However, she later changed this story too. Moore was taken into custody on February 2nd as a possible accessory to Abraham's murder. It was revealed that she had tried to convince Abraham's friend Greg Smith to exhume the body and move it a week after his death. She also promised to pay him $50,000 to convince everyone that Abraham was still alive. She even went as far as using Abraham's cell phone to text friends and family for weeks after the murder to avoid suspicion, confusing them with text messages supposedly sent by Abraham who couldn't read or write. Moore protested her $1 million bond. However, finally on February 19th, once the case against her became watertight, was arrested and indicted for first-degree murder. Even though forensics didn't have much to hold Moore responsible, the huge amounts of money she had stolen from Abraham convinced everyone that she was indeed the murderer. Her company, American Medical Professionals, bought Abraham's house for $655,000 and withdrew $185,000 for loans that were never in Abraham's possession. She attempted to convince one of Abraham's ex-partners and the mother of his son to tell investigators that she had seen him recently in exchange for a $200,000 home. She also told the son to gift her $5,000, alleging the money was from Abraham. The twisted psychology of Dee Dee Moore became increasingly apparent when she even made false allegations of rape and carjacking during the murder investigation. It was found that she had staged the scene to avoid losing possession of a Lincoln Navigator for failed payments and received probation for the false account. Moore's antics in court attracted tabloid attention, as well as several reprimands from judges. She nodded her head, pulled faces, and disrupted court proceedings by crying and interjecting. She accused Greg Smith, who testified against her for trying to persuade him to tell people that Abraham was alive for the sum of $50,000, of being the murderer. She alleged that Smith had killed Abraham for being involved with his wife. Greg Smith had been a material witness, recording her confession and submitting it to the police. "I'm not scared of going to prison because there is no jury that will convict me," Moore stated before her sentencing. However, she was sentenced to life in prison for first-degree murder in a case that made national headlines, which bizarrely still did not deter her from her twisted narrative. Moore's pathological lying and strange antics continued, and she petitioned for a retrial, accusing her defense of not doing a good job. Moore is convinced there is a conspiracy to frame her, stating during her hearing that they're being paid under the table because cocaine dealers can afford it a lot. Dee Dee, now 49, is currently awaiting the results of her hearing. Sadly though, for Abraham's family, judicial justice just doesn't bring back the loved one you've lost. Abraham was quoted as saying at one point, "I thought all these people were my friends, but then I realized all they want is just money." And unfortunately, he was right, with his lottery win becoming a lottery tragedy.